welcome to Gideon Stuff. Today we're taking a look at the Safari Ltd Feathered Tyrannosaurus Rex. Two different versions. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you're probably thinking, whoa, what the heck is this? If you're new to the channel, welcome. Usually I review EDC gear, knives, and stuff like that. However, I have multiple hobbies and passions, and one of those is collecting dinosaur figurines. I'm actually studying to be a paleontologist. It's been a lifelong passion of mine, and part of that passion is I really enjoy collecting models. And so this is going to be a regular part of the channel now. I will be reviewing dinosaur models, but never fear, longtime viewers. I will continue reviewing pocket knives and such. In fact, I am currently working on the review of the Sin Cut episode, which is a really nice pocket knife. Big fan of this thing. So, for right now, let's look at these two versions. So, here we have the original Safari Feathered Rex. I think this is from 2017? I've had this guy for quite a while. And then we have this new version. That's a Dana something paint scheme variant. I don't know what Dino Dana is. I don't watch that. I'm not into it. I'm into these models for the collectability and scientific accuracy of them. So that's how we'll be looking at them. Real quick, as you can see, there's a little bit of a height difference between these two. I think that's because I've had this guy on a shelf for several years, and he's starting to lean forward as the plastic in his ankles weakens. But I can't remember. Just to be safe, we are going to go ahead and do all of our measurements and stuff with the new Rex on the block. So let's get out our ruler. We're looking at the hip at a height of about 4.5 inches. At the head, just a little bit under 6. The overall length, snout to tip of the tail, is 12 inches, pretty much on the dot, putting this figure very solidly in that 1/40th scale range, and which I like. I think most of my collection is 1/40th scale. I think it's a good scale, especially for T-Rex. And so, yeah, it's really cool. Let's bring out some size comparisons. First of all, let's compare it against the classic. Here it is against our Papo Rex. There we go. And let's compare it against another Safari Limited dinosaur. We'll do it against the Triceratops because they're from the same ecosystem. Alrighty. Now let's get into a little bit of information about T-Rex itself. So Tyrannosaurus Rex is a genus and species of Tyrannosaur theropod from the Upper Cretaceous of North America. This was actually the last living Tyrannosaur that we know of. Probably the last living Tyrannosaur that we'll ever find, because it did live right there at the tail end of the reign of the dinosaurs about 66 million years ago. So they could grow up to lengths of 40 feet long, about 13 feet tall. Estimates for weight put it between, I've heard estimates anywhere from 7 tons up to 15 tons. We'll talk more about weight later. But yeah. As for the discovery, T-Rex was discovered, the first partial skeleton was discovered in 1900 by Barnum Brown, and he gave it the name Tyrannosaurus Rex, which I'm not sure if he knew at the time how popular that would be, but it's quite a cool name. Translated from Latin, it means tyrant, lizard, king. And T-Rex has definitely had his spotlight in the pop culture eye, which, yeah, well deserving. So, there's kind of a little bit of a history. We're not going to go too far into it. Everyone knows T-Rex. Come on, everyone knows T-Rex, even if you're not a dinosaur person. So, let's go ahead and get a closer look at both of these models. Alright, so let's start with the original. What we can see here is a very nice head sculpt. Looks really good. We have some scars. The color is predominantly reds and blacks. Goes to a little bit of an orange there. The underbelly and the skin parts are kind of a beige gray. Nice long tail. Excellent detailing. All the scales look really, really nice. The feathers look great. We'll get more into that later. Look at the new one. Also still has those scars. The eyes are the same color between the two. Nice, robust looking Tyrannosaur. This one goes with a predominantly yellow color. You can see here on the mane we have little flecks of orange and brown. Go down here, we have this kind of maroony brown line. Goes through, yellow back. Kind of beigey feathers here. More gray underneath. And out to the tail. So this version here comes with a little, apparently it comes with a play feature where you can do the virtual reality. There's an app and you can do a virtual reality type thing. I don't know. I don't really care. It was on the little tag for the foot. I took that off and threw it away. I'm not in it for the play features. I'm here to evaluate the scientific accuracy and overall build quality. So let's go ahead and jump right in with all that stuff. Let's start with the head. Very nice looking head. Really does kind of capture the massiveness of T-Rex. You can see here we do have a little bit of a paint smudge from the teeth. The teeth themselves are done pretty similarly to the original. They're okay. They're not, individual, but they're nice. One thing I wanted to show was this. Ah! And that's kind of graphic, wasn't it? When I first got this one, floating around in the package was this thing, and I was like, what the heck is that? I got out, I was like, it's the tongue. So I guess this is a good time to look at the sculpting detail on the tongue. Yeah, fairly nice. I mean, I guess I can super glue this back in, or I could just have it as a feature, removable tongue for some reason. Doesn't give it that much of a different look. I don't know. Anyways, get back in there. So the head itself is very accurate to T-Rex. Nice and broad. Another thing that we're seeing here is that there's no shrink wrapping. Shrink wrapping is something that does bother me a little bit. I'm reaching over here for the Papo Rex, who is not shrink wrapped as badly as some, but he does still exhibit shrink wrapping. And what shrink wrapping is when sculptors basically take the skull of the animal and they put the skin on it like wet paper, basically, so you can see all the different bones. They don't give it any flesh or muscle in there. So what we can see here on this Papo Rex is that the antorbital fenestrae here is very visible. Like the skin is really pressing against it instead of being filled with muscle and tissue. And then here we have the what is this? The infatemporal fenestrae. Had a brain fart. Is also pretty pronounced. But here we can see very nicely lots of meat on the bones. Well-fed T-Rex. He's not starving. That's good to know. This does have the... Oh, no, there's an airplane going over. We can see here that we have the very nice T-shaped view of the T-Rex's head, which is very important to T-Rex. And in fact, it gave T-Rex great eyesight. You know the scene in Jurassic Park where Alan Grant tells everyone to stay still so the T-Rex can't see them? Yeah, that's BS. T-Rex actually had excellent vision, and it's because of this T-shaped profile to their head. This positioned their eyes so they looked forward, and they had overlapping vision, or binocular vision. And so this allowed them to see further, to make out movement, to basically see everything they needed to see to be hunters. So, yeah, great eyesight. Alright, so a little bit more on about the head. We can see here T-Rex had a very robust head. In fact, T-Rex had the strongest bite that we know of any land predator. And so one of the ways that T-Rex achieved this is they have these huge muscles here. You know, these muscles would anchor down here in the jaw. They come up through here, and they'd attach back here. And so basically, like big springs, open it, and then they snap, the jaws snap shut. Very strong bite. And the skull of T-Rex, all the bones were kind of fused together. The skull of T-Rex had very little flexibility. It was very, very solid, And so it had a lot of strength. In fact, the roof of its mouth, you can see how wide the top of its mouth is, the upper part of the skull here. And so when the mandible would come close on something, it was a very strong bite. The teeth of T-Rex, I hear all the time people comparing them to steak knives, and that comparison just really aggravates me. Because yes, they were serrated on the edges. They had very, very small serrations. However, they were not like steak knives at all. In fact, a knife, they weren't really like knives at all. A knife is very thin. It cuts. And the teeth of T-Rex didn't cut so much as they did puncture. And so if you think about it, they were more like railroad spikes, which is another comparison that people draw between T-Rex teeth, which I think is way more fitting. Because T-Rex did not hunt by slicing. Some predators today and in the past did hunt by using cuts and slashes with their teeth or claws, but T-Rex hunted by crushing. So when a T-Rex runs up on, let's say, a hadrosaur, and it goes for the neck, when T-Rex bites, these teeth that are as big as bananas, and they're this big around, when they come down on flesh and bone, instead of cutting and T-Rex pulling back to basically kill the victim by letting them bleed out, they'd puncture. They go right into the skin, and you can think of it as, literally a puncture. Like if you took a stick and a piece of cardboard and you jammed it through there. And then when this has happened, T-Rex's teeth, they curve backwards. T-Rex has a solid hold on this animal. And so let's say that T-Rex was trying to bite this hadrosaur on the neck and break its neck, which was very, very possible for T-Rex to do. It was probably how T-Rex hunted a lot of the time, break the neck. Well, let's say T-Rex missed the neck in this case and did not kill this animal or incapacitate it instantly. Let's say he instead got it on the haunches. Well, now he's got a good grip on it. The animal cannot go anywhere, and T-Rex can move his head around. You see these really, really thick neck muscles snapping its head around, swinging its head around, severely causing severe damage to the animal. So, yeah, do not think of T-Rex's teeth as steak knives. They're more like railroad spikes. So, yeah. As far as the detailing on the actual model goes, it's good. It's good. Like I said, paint smudge there. The nostrils look good. All the little scales look really, really nice. You can see they're all pebbly. The scars here that we can see on the snout are on both sides. Besides looking cool, because they give a little bit of visual interest. Oh, and yes, by the way, the scars are the same between the two different versions. They're the same sculpt, just different paint schemes. T-Rex, there is evidence of cannibalism in T-Rex or fighting between the individuals. I should have put that the other way. There is evidence of fighting between the individuals and or cannibalism, because we don't know if they were cannibalized, but we do have evidence that T-Rex routinely bit each other, and it was probably a type of social interaction for them. Finding your place in the group, because T-Rex was probably a fairly social animal. So, yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move. Let's move down from the head. I want to start right here. Feathers. And now I think it's time we had the feather talk. Did T-Rex have feathers? Well, maybe. When I look at a piece of paleo art, which dinosaur models definitely are paleo art, one of the things I look for is plausibility. I actually saw a post on Instagram of someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone talking about plausibility in paleo art. And so if it's possible, it's 100% okay to put it in your paleo art. Because we do not know 100% what these animals looked like. We really don't. We don't know their colors. We don't know exactly what their skin covering was in a lot of cases. And so if it's plausible, if it could make sense, let your creativity run wild, Again, important. plausibility, if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, whatever. So anyways, feathers. Evidence for feathers in T-Rex. Well, there is evidence that T-Rex could have been feathered. So there's a very famous dinosaur, Tyrannosaurus, that was discovered in China. They were a tyrannosaur related to T-Rex, a more basal tyrannosaur, but definitely a tyrannosaur. And it was 3 individuals that were discovered of varying ages. And these animals were big. They were 30 feet long, and they were completely covered in feathers. So that right there is good evidence that large dinosaurs can be feathered. You know, it's not just small semi-avian dinosaurs. The large ones can have feathers as well. We also have fossil evidence of T-Rex skin. And it shows bumpy scales. And here's the thing. Perhaps feathers grew in between those scales. Perhaps not. Let's say that they didn't. You know, let's say these fossilized skin patches from T-Rex that we have show that there was no feathers in those areas, which I'm more apt to believe. The areas that the skin patches came from, as far as I know, I may be missing one. I'll have to reread the paper. Maybe I'll link it below. I don't know. But under the leg, which you can see there's no feathers here. The neck, no feathers here. And I'm thinking they actually found a patch from back here. I might be wrong. I'll have to double check myself on that. But even if they did, that does not disprove that T-Rex did not have feathers. So what we can see with the feathers here is that these very much resemble the feathers of an emu. Very shaggy, almost hair-like. And feathers provide a multitude of functions. Besides just keeping the animal warm, feathers thermoregulate basically everything. Feathers can help an animal control their body temperature, get themselves warmer or cooler. A lot of people don't know that, but yeah, feathers can actually help animals cool off. And that's one argument against feathers on dinosaurs. People talk about, well, in warmer climates, the earth was warmer back when the dinosaurs lived. Why would large animals need feathers? Well, it's because they can help you thermoregulate both hot and cold. So, yeah. Another thing that feathers are very useful for is display. And you can see that here. This dinosaur is very colorful. Very colorful. So if you wanted to, let's talk about display. What does display mean? There's a couple of different things that display could be. It could be something to differentiate between species or sexes. Sexual dimorphism could cause differences in colors. We could think about these two as a male and female pair. Especially in males, stupid tongue, feathers and being brightly colored could be used to attract a female. Let's look at this little mane of feathers here. Think about things like a grouse, where when they want to attract a mate, they puff up really big. Imagine these feathers sticking up and making a T-Rex look a little bit bigger. Make him, they're very colorful. This could make him look more attractive to a female T-Rex, or if he's facing down a rival male, it could make him look more intimidating and, shut his opponent down, make them run away. So I definitely think that a feathered T-Rex is 100% plausible, and I like the way Safari did it, especially with these emu-like feathers from a large flightless bird like T-Rex. Alright, so let's keep moving down here. I like these gray stripes here on the neck, and I like that the neck has this little dewlap looking thing. It's cool. It lends the animal a real sense of realism. In fact, something I love about Safari and the dinosaurs that they make is they look like real animals, not movie monsters or anything. They look like actual animals, and they exhibit traits of real animals. And you can see that this T-Rex, the pose I really like, because it's a very neutral pose. Yeah, he's roaring, but it could be roaring at anything. You never know. So let's talk about the neck. Very thick, very muscular. T-Rex had a short neck. We already talked a little bit about how that could aid in the power delivery of his bites. It helps T-Rex hold on to prey. Yeah. Also, you need to have a big neck to support this huge head. The biggest head of a T-Rex ever found, I believe, was about 5 feet long. So, yeah, big head needs a big neck. So we come down here to the chest area. The arms, very tiny, and they're not pronated. Pronation basically means the ability to put your hands like this. Flip your hands around. And dinosaurs could not do that. They could not turn their hands like this. Dinosaur arms were constantly stuck in a clapping position, which we can see here. The claws point towards each other. So yeah, and again, this is another link between dinosaurs and birds. In fact, we look at things like a raptor who had longer arms that, the hands are constantly caught in this clapping position. The wrists did not have very much mobility. The wrists could basically move like this. They couldn't go like this, or, they couldn't roll over and stuff. Very limited mobility in the wrists. However, in the shoulders, they had much more rotation. T-Rex did not have as much shoulder rotation ability, I guess we'll say. But you can kind of see where I'm going with this. That kind of leads to the development of wings. You grow out your long feathers, your primary and your tertiary feathers. And if you can move, if you hold your hands like this, you move them up, feathers are connected there. When your arms move at the shoulders, that gives you a flapping movement. So, yeah. That's nice. Let's talk about how chunky this guy is, because he is very chunky, and we're going to talk about the weight. So the weights for T-Rex vary quite a bit. Weight estimates for T-Rex vary quite a bit. And weight estimates for all extinct creatures are kind of hit or miss because, there's a lot of things we really cannot take into account. There's a lot of things we cannot calculate. So first of all, let's talk about, this very robust body. So what we can see here is we have the pubis that sticks out. And the pubis is this bone that's kind of shaped like a boot. It really does look like a boot. And it's part of their whole hip arrangement. So you have the pubis that comes out here. And you can see it clearly pronounced here. We have another little area where the ilum comes out here. And this would probably, we can see here, this could be interpreted as a cloaca. And so this wide area in here, the distance between the pubis and the ilum probably supported a very large area for his stomach, his intestines. And T-Rex also had 19 or 20 pairs of belly ribs that go from his pubis all the way up. And so this, again, is all things that are required to support a really big gut. So when we talk about dinosaur sizes, the things that people always want to talk about are the longest and the tallest. And weight is something that a lot of people don't really consider very much. So you take other theropods. There are tons of theropods that are longer than T-Rex. You have Carcharodontosaurus, Giganotosaurus, things like that. They're longer than T-Rex. However, not as heavy. T-Rex was a very dense creature. We see here there's a lot of muscle. The Caudal Femoralis muscle here, which everyone knows the Caudal Femoralis muscle for some reason. Everyone talks about it. I think it's because it's fun to say and it's kind of an easy to identify muscle. The Caudal Femoralis muscle, right here, it's basically a muscle that connects back here on the leg, around the tail and stuff. It helps with leg power, I guess you could say. Very robust. The muscles here in the thighs, very robust. So there's a lot of muscle density. As for weight on T-Rex, as I said earlier, I've heard estimates between 7 tons and 15 tons. And I'm not sure if I go exact for the 15-ton weight. That's a very heavy animal. But I think T-Rex probably did sit comfortably within the 8 to 10-ton range. I think T-Rex, that makes sense for T-Rex. Another thing I have to think about with weight is it probably varied between the sexes. Which brings me to another thing. So I have heard and read about how certain paleontologists think that there are actually multiple species of T-Rex or multiple species of Tyrannosaurus from North America that we've been lumping all into T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. I know Gregory Paul is someone who's a proponent of this idea. And so what this is based on is that a lot of tyrannosaurs that are discovered have kind of varying body shapes. We have robust forms, more gracile forms, and some that are kind of in between. And so for a long time, it's kind of speculated that the differences in body type were a difference between male and female, that maybe female were the more robust ones, or vice versa, and males were the more gracile ones, or vice versa. However, apparently because of differences in the times that these different animals lived, apparently there's some discrepancy in the ages of the fossils between the robust and the gracile. There might be more than one species of Tyrannosaurus from North America. We're not going to get too much into that, but this is definitely based on a robust skeleton. It's definitely based on the robust T-Rex forms. And, you know, my thoughts, I'm not sure if it's a difference in species. I kind of lean more towards a difference in sex. But, you know, nonetheless, there it is. So, yeah, very chunky animal. T-Rex, something we can talk about now. We've talked about the powerful bite force. We talked about how heavy he was. Probably was not a champion runner. Probably was not a very fast runner. So how did T-Rex hunt? It goes... There's been a debate for years. Was T-Rex a scavenger? Could T-Rex hunt? And for me, the answer is an obvious yes. T-Rex was a hunter. When you think about T-Rex's ecosystem, the animals that he lived with, there are really no other large predators in T-Rex's time and area, which you need because T-Rex also lived alongside animals such as Triceratops that are huge and need to be brought down by a large animal. And, you know, if there's no large predator to bring those down, your ecosystem has problems. So I think it's pretty clear that T-Rex was a hunter, and probably an ambush hunter, because, again, T-Rex could not run very fast. However, to take on things like Triceratops, you'd have to be a very solidly built animal. So when you're charging out there, you wait for them, you hide behind the trees, you probably might even work as a pack. That's been suggested for T-Rex as well, that they had a pack lifestyle. And then when a Triceratops comes away from the herd, or someone chases it away from the herd, one T-Rex that's hiding in the trees runs out and really fast just smashes into this Triceratops and tries to take it down with as much brute force as possible. And, you know, speaking of hunting habits, let's talk about the difference between an adult T-Rex and a juvenile, because that's very interesting stuff. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the ontogeny of Tyrannosaurus Rex. And what ontogeny is basically how an animal changes from birth to adulthood. So, juvenile T-Rexes, in fact, juvenile Tyrannosaurs in general, were very different from a full-grown T-Rex. So a juvenile T-Rex had a long, slender snout, very long legs, and a very lightweight body. Of course, you know, juvenile T-Rex, we're talking animals that are, you know, between 15 and 20 feet long, so still very big animals. Why were they so different from T-Rex? In fact, another thing that was very different is, instead of having the puncture-like teeth of T-Rex, younger T-Rex actually did have more blade-like teeth. Why? I think it all comes down to what I was talking about earlier about the balance in an ecosystem between predators and prey. So when a T-Rex is young, they focus on hunting young animals, fast animals such as the ornithomimids that they lived with. They're very fast, so a T-Rex will need to be fast to catch up to them. However, speed is an ornithomimosaur's defense because they don't have very much weapons, they're not very bulky. So, you know, if they can get away from something, they're safe. But if a T-Rex juvenile could catch up to them, it was very easy to dispatch of them. So they needed to be more speedy than powerful. Another thing, they could have hunted, you know, like I said, young animals, young hadrosaurs, things like that. Things that needed more speed to take down and less power. Then, as a T-Rex matures, they start taking out things like Triceratops or full-grown hadrosaurs. And in this way, one animal, one, you know, group of animals, one species, the T-Rex, could cover a multitude of different predatorial niches in their ecosystem. As a youth, they hunt the young and fast, and then when they get older, they hunt the big, strong, very hard to take down animals. And so in T-Rex's ecosystem, of course, there was other competition from other predators, especially for the young T-Rexes. They lived alongside things such as Dakota raptor, but there wasn't really very much large game hunters that T-Rex could compete with. So, yeah, definitely a very interesting type of thing to think about. Okay, we need to wrap this up. Let's talk about the feet real quick. So these feet are a little bit enlarged just for stability. These models do stand on 2 feet. They balance on 2 feet. You can tip them back on their tail, and they stand in tripod pose. I've stood them on shelves, and they do just fine either way. So, yeah. These feet are a little bit enlarged for stability, but I don't think it's that bad. They still look very bird-like. Love the little scoots here. Very, very nice. Nice big claws. Very good looking. This featherless patch here I find very interesting. Obviously, this is where a T-Rex would defecate from, lay eggs from, and this is a place in the body that would be very very useful for cooling the animal down. You know, there's a lot of veins in here. This is a lot of skin here. This is a big area of skin. And so, you know, if you've ever seen an elephant at the zoo like flap its ears trying to cool off, you can kind of think of like the same type of purpose here. If a T-Rex needs to cool off, this is an area that they could, I don't know, either put in a stream, you know, sit in a stream, or literally just lay down, roll around, flap their legs around, and get some wind flowing down there. So, yeah. Tail, nice and long. Yeah. As for T-Rex's tail, T-Rex had a fairly long tail, which makes sense because it had to counterbalance its head. In fact, T-Rex had about 40 caudal vertebrae in the tail. Very long tail, very sturdy, thick tail. To counterbalance his head. In fact, this model shows that perfectly. You know, the tail counterbalances the feet so he can stand. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Again, I just want to point out these feathers. I love that they took inspiration from like an emu and their feathers, because I think that makes the most sense. All right, so let's wrap up this review. So, I know we haven't had the old guy out here. I'm not sure which color scheme I prefer more. Again, I think about the plausibility of the colors. And honestly, both of these colors do seem plausible to me. This one is a little more outlandish, but I don't think either color is too out of this world to, you know, make it unrealistic. And I like that. I like that a lot. They're both just great models. On a shelf, they have just a commanding presence, super commanding presence. These make they make such great display pieces. You know, my issue with this guy, I think he is starting to lean a little bit just from the years. That's something that happens. You can easily fix, you know, if it gets too bad, I'll fix him by, you know, dipping his feet in some boiling water, soften them up, and then bending them back into place and shaping them again. But yeah. Couple of paint smears, not a deal breaker for me. The price on these, I picked this one up for about $25 years ago. I'm not sure what they run for now, but I bought this one for $30. So if this one is more expensive just because of that stupid scan me and play on the app thing, I don't really like that, but you know, whatever. Yeah, they're both just phenomenal. Apparently Safari's coming out with more dinosaurs for their Dino Dana line. I don't really know much about that, but yeah, these are two just very, very nice models. In fact, as far as feathered T-Rex models on the market go, I think these are the best. I just really love the solid, bulky feeling of these animals, and the fact that these really do feel like animals and not just monsters. They look interesting. They look good. Scientifically, there's really nothing to complain about with these guys. You know, they have the nice short neck, very good robust head. The arms are appropriate. The chunkiness is definitely appropriate. The feathers, I think they went with good feathers here. The pose itself, you know, the way the body's positioned, nothing wrong with that. This is definitely an attainable position for this animal to stand in. So, yeah, just really, really good. Really good. And I'm a big fan of both these models. Love them a whole lot. So, yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. If you liked the video, give it a like. Don't forget to comment and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.